Welcome to H360 Health Talk. I'm here today with Jim Raffone, the founder and CEO of an organization called Jar of Hope. It was September 13th, 2013, when Jim and his wife Karen received the news that no parent should ever have to get. They were told that their child was sick. On that day, their 9-year-old son Jamesy was diagnosed with Duchenne Muscular Dystrophy, a rare mutation in a gene that results in severe muscle degeneration. The Raffones then sought a number of professional options only to be given the same heartbreaking news that they should go home and love their son because there was no cure. Unsatisfied with that unaccepting news of their child's death sentence, Jim and Karen set out to reverse the seemingly insurmountable odds against them, and this is when Jar of Hope was born. Their mission is dedicated to bringing awareness, raising funds directed to ongoing research in the hope that they eliminate Duchenne Muscular Dystrophy. Jim, welcome to the table.
Dave, thank you very much for having me.
But Jim, why don't we start? I mean, you've got a fascinating story and one that many in our community are going to want to hear. But why don't we start by having you just tell me a little about your family and about your background?
Well, I'm married to my wife, Karen, just about 20 years now. And 15 years ago, we became proud parents to our daughter, Mariana. 22 months later, my Julia was born. And then a few years later, my Jamesy. So we're a family of 5, and 20 years we spent in Manalapan, New Jersey now, and we love it there.
So you're, by background and work, you were in the construction industry.
Yes.
Specializing in what kind of construction?
Sand, concrete, and then additions in houses, adding kitchens, bathrooms, basements, things of that nature.
So family of 5. Jamesy is your youngest.
He's my baby, yeah.
Tell me a little about the day that you received the news. I mean, let me even step back a little further. How did you know that something with Jamesy was going wrong?
We were fortunate enough, and I say this, and if I can find the woman that brought this to our attention, I would hug her, because my son was showing some acute inabilities to perform, to walk, to climb, and he's in preschool, right? So this teacher in preschool actually really paid attention to my son's mobility concerns, and then she brought it to my wife's attention that my son was not keeping up with the rest of the boys in the class.
Now, how old was he at that time?
He was 3.
At 3. Huh.
Yeah, so God bless her that she had the courage to bring this to my wife's attention.
Right. Yeah, a lot of teachers would not have done that, and, kids kind of slip through the cracks and get pushed on from class to class. So she comes to you and says that, Jamesy is struggling a little bit to keep up with the other boys his age, and where do you go from there?
Well, unfortunately, initially we had this reaction of, not my son. My son's not sick. Are you crazy?
Did you notice anything at home?
We did. My son used to have now looking back, we call it a funny walk. He used to walk with his chest out. But as you can see, his father's not tiny in the chest area.
Right.
So we just thought that he was going to grow to be like me, very big on the top side. But looking back, it was his way, his body's way of helping him walk. But as a parent, you don't look at it that way. So thank God, she was really an amazing woman to step up and say something. I'm so grateful.
So do you go to an orthopedist? I mean, where's your first stop in this journey?
So my wife then went back to the pediatrician to say, hey, the teacher thinks that something's up. What do you think? Trying to get the attention of a pediatrician, the expert in the field. And right away it was, he's too young. It's okay. Boys just develop later. Things like that. And looking back in hindsight again, it really wasn't the right approach. So it was, again, the following year where she really grabbed us and said, you really need to look into this.
But setting Jamesy aside for a minute, children that are diagnosed with Duchenne are diagnosed at approximately what age?
Between 4 and 6.
Okay.
So this was even earlier than that.
So he's 3 at the time.
Right.
Pediatrician looks and says, a little too early.
Right.
Maybe still skeleton development going on or whatever.
Right.
Whatever happened.
Because my daughters, when they were growing up, my oldest, she walked at 12 months. And then my middle child, my Julia, she walked at 10 months. So we're thinking my son's going to be either, me being macho, my son's going to walk at 7 months.
Right.
But that wasn't the case. So everything was delayed. So the doctor, the pediatrician was like, yeah, he's just a little delayed. He's not like your daughter's girls or advanced. And, kept pushing that on us until my wife stood up and said, no, we need to figure this out. We need a blood test, whatever it is that you do to see what's going on internally, to figure out if children are suffering from something. You need to do it. And then even that, the doctor said, okay, because it was May. We'll do it in August, in the turn of the year, because we don't want to start poking your son and we got to give him shots to go back to school again. So when that time comes, we'll do
it all at once. Yeah,
and do it all at once.
So can a genetic mutation be picked up in a in a blood draw, or does that have to be picked up in kind of a DNA mapping?
No, ironically, well, through the blood draw, and then they do the DNA checking within the blood that they withdraw from you. So it's that easy of a test.
Yeah.
But nobody checks for it. So even when my wife, I don't know if you're familiar, but a woman over a certain age, 35, if she has a child, during pregnancy, there's a battery of tests that they check for. Duchenne Muscular Dystrophy is not one of them.
Yeah.
So my wife was tested for Down syndrome. She was tested for a few other things, but nobody ever checked for Duchenne. So we would have known even 3 years earlier, and perhaps had the even better odds of giving my son early intervention.
And the cost of that is zero.
Right. The cost of a blood test.
Well, the blood's already drawn. You're being tested for these other things. Why not throw one more test at the back end of that, right?
Well, then you've got an insurance issue, right? Insurance companies don't want to pay for something that there's no right cost for. It just costs to do.
Right.
So what I would love to do is eventually get that test put on there as a baseline.
Sure.
For older women who are over 35, we're going to go through those tests. Just add Duchenne to the list.
Right.
Why not?
Why not? Makes sense. Yeah. So, okay, so he says a little too early to tell. Now, is your antenna really up at this point? I mean, are you watching Jamesy as he's walking and playing and doing whatever he's doing and saying, yeah, I'm really seeing it. I mean, because it's almost like the placebo effect, right? If you've got something in the back of your mind that there could be something wrong, everything points to something being wrong, right? Were you like that?
Well, honestly, me personally, no. My wife was, where I was the other side, where my son's going to be fine. I'm going to raise him to be this big, tough kid, where he's the first boy of the family, right? So my wife is very nurturing, very loving. He's the last child. So my son's, his feet rarely touch the ground. Between the grandparents, between his sisters, between friends, between my wife and I, my son was always in our arms, always, So we never really, and then in the back of my head, I'm like, the professional is telling you there's nothing wrong. And I'm telling my wife this.
Yeah.
Don't get so excited.
Yeah.
But, as a concerned mother, God bless them, they've got that innate ability to go,
Isn't that the truth?
There's something wrong here.
Yeah. Yeah. So a little more time passes, and then where do we go?
We go to August.
Okay.
And
getting ready for school.
Right. Getting ready for school, and my wife is, we got to get this test. We got to get this test. Now, I'm trying to put an addition on my house. I said, listen, no problem. Just let me finish this addition, and then we'll deal with this. Because I'm thinking, and legitimately, I'm telling my friends, there's nothing wrong. I just got to go through this exercise to make my wife feel better, right? But I need to finish this addition.
But at this point, you still don't know the word Duchenne.
I have no idea. Right. Through the school teacher, they discussed muscular dystrophy.
Oh, okay.
So I know muscular dystrophy.
Yeah.
Like everybody else.
Yeah.
Jerry Lewis.
That's right.
Yeah. I watched it growing up. The word Duchenne, I don't recall Jerry ever using the word Duchenne. He might have, but as a kid, because I was younger then, I didn't pick that up. But I kept saying, now mind you, when I was a child, or younger in my younger days, I was a bodybuilder. I helped people get through, nowadays everybody's on weight loss kicks and stuff. I was one of those guys on the other side of the table counseling people how to lose weight.
Yeah.
What vitamins to eat, what types of foods to eat. So I'm thinking, I should be attuned to this. No way. And then, lo and behold, she pushed, God bless my wife, to have the blood test. And then they came back and they told her, 1:45 Friday afternoon, on a phone call, your son has Duchenne.
On a phone call.
On a phone call.
and she hears that word, she still doesn't know what that is.
My wife knew.
She knew.
Because my wife, she's an educated woman, she used to be a school teacher, she knows how to do research. So when she's looking up muscular dystrophy, the number one pediatric killer with children with muscular dystrophy is Duchenne.
And the doctor calls you, the nurse calls you.
The doctor, because my wife is pushing it, I want the results, because weeks go by, no results. So my wife is on it. Finally, the doctor told her over the phone, your son has Duchenne. I'll never forget the phone call when she called me. The screaming, the crying, and I thought, literally, I was in my truck going to work. I thought my wife was getting attacked the way she was screaming on the phone. It's a sound I'll never forget. And to give a human being, a mother of their little boy, that was just uncalled for. But I turned around, I came home, and I met her, and I rescheduled an appointment with that same geneticist. And at 4 o'clock, I got an appointment with that geneticist.
That same day.
The same day. And I'm in the car telling my wife there's something wrong. The blood work is wrong. It's okay. James, he's going to be fine. So we're going to get through this. And we had about a 40-minute ride to the geneticist. And then I just saw, just by the geneticist's face, sitting across the table from me, telling me, what I told your wife is right, and I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do for you. And I sat there. What do you mean there's nothing you can do for me? My son is sick. What's the therapy? What's the surgery? What's the shots? There's diabetes, there's penicillin. Like, what do we do for him the rest of his life?
Right.
I'm sorry, insulin. What do we do for him? What do you mean there's nothing?
Yeah.
She said, I'm sorry. You just got to go home and love your son. Make sure he's happy and healthy. But know this, by 13, 15, he'll be a quadriplegic. It just didn't. And then driving home on Route 18 going southbound, I couldn't even tell you what lane I was in, where I was. I just remember taking my foot off the gas and in the car just stopping in the middle of Route 18. And I have no idea how long we were there. I remember my wife screaming and yelling, you gotta move, you gotta move, you gotta move, and paralyzed, just paralyzed. And that was Friday the 13th. It was just god awful. It really was. And it just didn't get any better. Through the weekend, my wife researched more and more and more. I researched more and more and more. And I remember my wife just saying, we can't do this.
Did you say to your wife, look, when we pull in this driveway and we see Jamesy, like, we've got to, like, there's still work for us to do. We've got research to do. We're not accepting what that geneticist told us, that just go home and love Jamesy. And that'll be...
I would love to tell you yes. That whole way home I cried. I don't know how we made it home safe. I don't even remember. I remember pulling in the driveway and seeing my father. And I couldn't get out of the car. I remember my wife jumping out of the car and running into the house. And my father sitting there, and I don't know if I shut the car off. I don't even know if I put it in park. And I just remember my father saying, you got to get out of the car, you got to get out of the car. And I just couldn't move. And I just kept screaming, he's going to die, he's going to die. And then, they managed, my sister came out of the house, and then they managed to get me in the house. And no, there was no fight. There was just complete paralysis and complete misunderstanding of how, in this day and age, they could be people in space, and they can live there for years on end. You're telling me you can't cure a disease? A pediatric disease, no less? It just doesn't make sense. And the family was there. People came in and out of the house. And when my wife and I had a few minutes alone, my wife turned to me and she said, we can't do this. My wife had lost her father when she was 13. She lost her mother when she was 30. Now she's looking at, in a very short period of time, she's going to lose her son.
Yeah.
And I can't do this. My daughters can't lose their brother. I can't lose my son. And she said, tomorrow, we got to devise a plan, and we all got to go before it gets worse.
Yeah.
And that
smart woman.
That was our way out. We were just going to take our own lives. We were going to legitimately put the kids in the car when they were sleeping, go in the garage, turn the car on, and just go to
Oh, that kind of, I'm sorry. that kind of plan.
That was the plan. And thank God, I don't know what somebody heard, what somebody did, because it's still a fog, that they took the kids out of the house that night. And if they didn't, this may not be the situation today. And Monday was my mother's birthday. And I think that legitimately was the saving grace, because I remember looking at my wife and saying, I can't have my mother come here on her birthday and find us all dead in the car. It's just
right. That's like, yeah.
So she went upstairs and she cried herself to sleep, and I didn't see her till Monday morning. And I was glued to the computer. And I remember it was Monday morning, 7:30, and something just happened. I got angry, Dave. I got so angry that I went upstairs to her and I said, listen, this disease may take our son. It's not going to take our family.
Yeah.
You had all weekend to cry. Legitimately, she did. I let you cry. I let you get it out. I let you deal with it in your own way. But from today going forward, we fight. We will fight to save his life. Any second we spend feeling bad for ourselves, feeling bad for him, is 1 second less he has for us to save his life. And it starts now. And legitimately, she said, I can't. I said, well, it doesn't matter. You have to. Mm-hmm. She says, well, I will follow you. If you say this is what we're going to do, I will follow you. She goes, but you got to know, it's going to take every fiber in me to get out of bed today. Don't worry about it. I got it. And that's not when Jar of Hope was really born. We were just going to fight. People started raising money for us, for the family, but now the word is out that little Jamesy Raffone is sick and he's terminally ill, and people just started donating money. We raised about $24,000, my sister, in like maybe 72 hours. It was just crazy. Looking back, it was just amazing how people came together in the community from Staten Island to New Jersey. It was just beautiful. But then when I was received the check, I looked at it and I said, I received this check. I'm accepting my son's diagnosis. I'm accepting his fate. I can't do that. So I legitimately gave it to someone. I said, you need to find a foundation to take this and make sure they do the right thing with it.
So Duchenne being so rare, was it easy to find a foundation?
It wasn't. Believe it or not, we found a foundation. It was in California.
And kind of similar situation, family's child diagnosed, starts the foundation, and was that the case?
That's the case. Family, mother, father, and that was it. They had been diagnosed years before my son. They've been in the industry community way before me. And then I said, send them the check. I can't. I accept this. I accept my son's fate. And then we found out that there were other foundations in the area, and I went to them. What can I do to help? I gotta help you. I gotta be involved. Whatever you're doing, I want in. I want to help save our boys, because now it's their boys who are involved. I come to find out in this community, there's 43 other foundations who are fighting Duchenne Muscular Dystrophy. And I said, I gotta help you save our boys. And they're all, again, familiar, right? It's all family. And I got turned down. So,
what do you mean you got turned down?
They told me no. Yeah, one after another. No, we don't need help. We don't need help. We don't need help. And I was.
And so you must be okay. You're close to finding a cure, right? Well, if you don't need help, you're like the cure is right on the doorstep, and right.
I wish I was in that right state of mind to ask that very powerful question, but the answer is no. There's a lot of things down the pipeline now. 5 years ago, there was even less. I think there's only 20 different types of drugs that are out there, and they're not a cure. The pharmaceutical companies are doing wonderful, right? But they're going after ways to take, if you will, Duchenne and convert it to Becker muscular dystrophy. So it's going to create a different type of muscular dystrophy, but it's not a cure.
So is there a relationship between the two muscular dystrophies? There
is, and it's the way the disease is. One is in frame, one is out of frame. When you look at the dystrophin gene, and they only discovered where the mutation falls, which creates this god-awful disease, and only in 1987. And they realized that this dystrophin gene resembles a string of pearls. And those pearls are now called exons. and they number those exons from 1 to 79. And the anomaly about this disease is each side of this said pearl is a puzzle piece. So the dystrophin gene wants to build the protein to stabilize muscle tissue from 1, and it bounces down to number 79, and then it creates this completed protein. So with my son, he has a deletion. He's missing pearls or exon number 46 and 47. So his body wants to produce this protein.
Right.
When it gets to 45, it doesn't have a place to go. So they're creating what's called a skipping drug. So it goes from 45, it'll skip to the next exon that kind of fits into the puzzle, right? So he's out of frame. That's what they call it. Becker's is in frame. So it's a little bit different.